Welcome to the High Vibration Reset, the podcast aimed at simplifying transformation and helping you get into inner alignment. Now, today's guest on the podcast is somebody I've known for many years, James Sweetman. And James is an executive and life coach. He is a trainer, speaker, the author of 6 books, and he's also an NLP Master Practitioner, as well as having a master's in creative writing. Oh, and he's also the host of the podcast Your Time with James Sweetman. So I am going to get straight into the episode and let's welcome James. So you're very welcome, James, to the High Vibration Reset. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh gosh, you're more than welcome, Ciara. And you were kind enough to be one of the first guests on my podcast a few moons ago. So I'm more than happy to do the return visit, as it were.
Thank you very much. And James, you and I know each other a long time.
Yes,
Actually, I was just thinking about we actually went to the same school,
we
secondary
did.
school,
We
didn't we?
did. I think
Yeah.
we were in different years. And of course, back then, if you weren't in the same year, you
Yeah.
didn't know each other, I don't think. But
Yeah.
yeah, we went to school in Skerries and um how would I say it? Scarily for me, that's nearly 40 years ago now.
Wow, wow. Is it that long for me? Almost, yeah.
Well, what I find even more scary is it's nearly 20 years since the 20-year school reunion. That's
Wow.
scary
Yeah,
when you
you're depressing me now where you're supposed to uplift my spirits. So let's move on into the good
let's move on.
So, James, look, for anyone who doesn't know you, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got into this work in the first place?
Goodness, right. Well, I was saying there about 20 years. I'm 20, almost 22 years in business now with my own coaching and training practice. Before that, I worked in financial services, straight from school. Back in the day, Ciara, when if you got a good pension
Yeah,
job, you took it. I did go back to college and study business. Enjoyed that learning part of it. I
yeah.
think as a slightly more mature student, I think I appreciated it more. And then, as I think I'm paraphrasing Stephen Covey of the Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, I climbed a career ladder, but I reached a certain rung and realized it was against the wrong building. So it wasn't me, and I had a lot of, how would I say, traditional corporate success in the 1990s, and I loved it until I didn't,
Mhm.
and I went off at age 30 at the turn of the millennium and did a little traveling. What a lot of people now do at age 20, I did it when I was 30 and had a little bit of money in my pocket, which made it easier.
Very nice.
And
Yeah.
I was the sort of person who was always interested in personal development, even if I
Mhm.
didn't know the phrase at the time. It was like pulling 10 tips on time management out of the back of a magazine and I'd keep it, or, tips on presentation skills. And it was just an area that I was interested in. And when I did my MBA, I did my thesis on the topic of motivation, which,
Mm,
again, looking back, you can see a pattern to it. As
yes.
I think that's the Steve Jobs sentiment from his Stanford address in 2005. He said, often looking back, you can see the dots or you can join the dots. So, I could see my love of personal development, my love of motivation. But it took me to go to the far side of the world, Ciara, to find a bookstore in Manly, Sydney, in Australia, where I came across a book called Be Your Own Life Coach by Fiona Harold. And I still have it on the shelf there over behind me. And it was the right book for me at the right time because it sort of got my head in gear around what did I want and some of the basic coaching type questions, which we all know now, but at the time was new for me, and it just sort of got my head in gear a little bit. But it also, how would I say it? It opened up my eyes to a world that I never knew existed, because I said the world of coaching was something that I never knew was out there, other than, say, in a sports context. So when I came back from my traveling, I did a project management role, a contract for 18 months. At nighttime, I did a business and life coaching diploma. That led into an NLP. Diploma, which led to an NLP Master Practitioner, and many other things in between. But in January '04, when the contract came to an end, the project management contract, they were happy to extend it or to give me a permanent position in the financial services firm. But I said, no, I'll place a bet on myself, and
Very
I'll
good.
try setting up my own coaching and training business. And there is that phrase, find a job you love and you never have to work another day in your life. It's not really true, because as you know, you do have to work.
You sure
But
do. Yeah.
but but it was different in that I was focusing on an area that just lit me up.
Mm,
Motivation wasn't an issue. I was loving what I was
yeah.
doing, and that has evolved. It has evolved in ways I could never have predicted. Um, there's been challenging times, of course, with the financial crisis. Certainly, with COVID, was very difficult because the group work went. But if I look at what I'm focusing on now, there tends to be a few strands to what I do. An element of it is one-to-one coaching, and that usually falls into maybe 2 or 3 different categories. One is what I would call career fulfillment coaching. So it tends to be professional people who've achieved a level of success in their careers, but they're looking to, I suppose, have a more enriched experience. They're looking for fulfillment now as opposed to achievement, and finding meaning in what they're doing.
So very similar to your journey, really.
Yeah. And those, how would I say it? It's people who are in career transition as well, because sometimes I'll work with people who have job interviews coming up, and that's not something I had sort of ever planned to do, but it's its own little niche, sort of combining, let's say,
Yeah.
career focus, communication skills, confidence, all the other things that I work in sort of come together with that, and that ticks over. Every week I'll have 2 or 3 interview skills clients that I work with. Then there's the group workshops on a range of personal development topics, the soft skills as they're known, but really they're the hard skills, as we
Essential
know,
skills.
the essential skills. I speak at conferences and events, which I love as well. There's always
Yeah.
great synergy to that. And then in certainly over the last 10 years, certainly over the last 6 years in particular, a big chunk of my time is media production, for want of a better phrase.
Yeah.
There's the YouTube channel, there's my own podcast, there's the blog, which has been going since 2005.
Wow.
More recently, there's the membership community. So there's
Yeah.
there's a certain rhythm to that as well that needs to be produced.
And that's kind of the road of the coach nowadays, isn't it? That kind of almost a portfolio career where there
It
are so
is,
many different facets within it.
yeah, and I think you bring your own personality to it. You bring your own
Mm,
experiences to it,
yeah.
and you bring your own, how would I say it? You bring your own sense of what lights you up as well.
Yeah.
I know for me, even pre-COVID, there was an element of churn to some of it. It's like, oh, it's another one of those programs. I'm fine, and it's delivered professionally and freshly, but it wasn't lighting me up in the same way.
Mm,
So therefore, there's been some adjustments to what I do so that I'm getting more fulfillment from it, if that makes
exactly.
sense.
Exactly. I just want to apologize if there's any background noise. I have a post-surgery dog with a cone head in the
Oh,
room.
goodness.
So
Poor thing.
please, you and listeners, please forgive any shuffling. So James, you talked about the book, there, Be Your Own Life Coach, on
Mm,
your shelf behind you, and I
mm,
have one of your books on
uh-huh.
my shelf,
Thank you.
which has been very important to me over the years, especially when I qualified, or was, a new enough coach, and that
Mhm.
was SOAR,
Or with the yellow cover,
the
yeah.
yellow cover. Yeah. So tell me the subheading there, SOAR question.
Powerful, powerful questions that will transform your life.
Yeah.
Gosh,
Yeah.
that's going back. That book was out in when, 2011. And then
Right.
there's a second edition of it, I think, in 18
Very good.
and
And that, I suppose, was written, you wrote that in terms of a bit like for people to ask, to be their own life coach, to
Yes,
ask their own questions. Whereas
yes.
I found it very useful as a new enough coach to pick it off the shelf and get
And
some
use some of the
ideas.
questions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's funny. From the early stages, I had a Word document in which I collected questions.
Brilliant.
I called them powerful questions.
Yeah.
And I still do collect questions. A lot of them now will go into my phone instead, or it's like, oh no, that can be the topic for a podcast, or, I'll run with it rather than just record them. And for me, as we know as coaches, questions are the tools of our
Mm.
trade. Good questions will open the door to new thinking or wider perspectives. If we're looking for different answers, different ideas, new solutions to old problems, we start by asking different questions. And how would I say it? I love the power of questions.
Absolutely. And
Be-
can you remember, was there a particular question for you that really gave you an aha moment or a real shift?
Oh, there would be loads. I just need
Yeah,
to go to
yeah.
the more recent one, because it happens all the time.
Brilliant.
Two come to mind. Um, what is this situation asking of me that I'm still withholding?
Mm,
Yeah. Now,
interesting.
I probably reach a stage where I'd call them sometimes like advanced questions. They need a level
Yes.
of self-awareness to be able to comprehend them.
Yes.
But I find that one, what does this situation ask of me that I'm still withholding, really useful. And it's one of my go-to ones.
Mm,
Some like personally, so I try out all the stuff on myself first. And that's one that I will often ask myself when I'm feeling challenged or frustrated. And to be honest with you, most of the time it's in a personal context as
mhm.
opposed to a work context. There's another one that's my current flavor of the month, which is what would feel like relief.
Lovely.
So again, frustration, stress, holding on to something, tension, uh, what would feel like relief. Um, allows me to relax the shoulders a little, even if it's like,
Mm,
well, what would feel like relief, taking a breath, or what would feel like relief, letting this go now. It's not the time for it. Uh,
lovely.
so they would be just off the top of my head, two
Yeah.
questions that are go-tos for me.
Yeah. 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 I have a simpler one that really was a pivotal moment for me. And I'm remembering the moment because I was in the shower, whatever brought the
Mhm.
question to me at that time.
Yes,
But it was that state of overwhelm, but probably good overwhelm, because
right.
when you're motivated by so many things, there's so many
Yes,
things you want to
loads of
achieve, and you
energy.
want to, yeah, and you want to achieve them all now. And it was
Yes,
that question: what's the one thing that you could achieve this year that would make it your best yet?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's really powerful for me because I have that overwhelmed tendency. It's just strip it all back and say, what's that one thing?
yeah. It
Because I
helps with
focus.
focus. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
focus.
Yeah.
Focus being thinking less thoughts. So that
Yeah.
question helps you park other things. It's a bit like the like we all say, from a time management point of view, know your priorities. But the
Yeah.
reach of the word priority comes from the Latin a priori, and it cannot, strictly speaking, be pluralized. So it's like we can't really have priorities. If
Yeah.
everything's a priority, nothing is. But it's like, what's the one priority? And that question brings laser focus into it.
Yeah. And that was actually the answer was my first book.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that
Because
helped
I'm
me
look,
to
I
just
can see over here your books too. So
ah thank you. Thank you. So James, another thing that I really admire about you as a coach is that you have managed to blend that real knowledgeable, having an MBA, having all the background in business and all of those tools with the more spiritual side.
yes, yes.
So, was there a point or a time where you struggled with that, or did it just evolve naturally? How did it all come
I
about?
think I think it is a natural evolvement. I think my own health scares with
Mm.
two types of cancer, bladder and skin cancer, in when was that, 17 and 19. Heightened it. COVID had something to do with it when we're looking at business pivots and that businessy
Yeah.
type language. You know, my father dying in 20 as well, passing the age of 50. I think always ages that end with zero sort of get you to sit up a little. And whilst I wouldn't necessarily, how would I say it, phrase it as you would phrase it, I now, how would I say it? I care a little bit less about what people think of me. Um, and it is about authenticity, as I would see it. So it's like, this is who I am. This is how I'm showing up. I have a very clear intention in what I send out into the world, and in client work and in group work. You know, my motivation behind doing things is very clear to me, and I wanted to feel aligned, if you know what I mean. So
Hmm.
I think for most of us, this little while, I have come closer to my heart, as I would phrase it. So whether that's more of a spiritual dimension to the work, or whether it's more of of a humanity within it, perhaps, maybe. But it is funny the way you acknowledge that, because now on my profile and on my blurb, as it were, you know, say my focus now is on sharing wisdom that's found at the intersection of business, leadership, personal development, and spirituality. So that word actually appears on my website and on my material, because I think it reflects where I'm at today.
Hmm.
And that's not for everyone. And I wouldn't want it to be for everyone, because no one likes bland soup, as I often
Yep.
say, you know, but it's a bit like, you know, this is my journey, this is where I'm at. And if that resonates with others, great. And thankfully it does. And it's me at the cutting edge of my own learning and development, which is like the place I like to be. You know, it's something new and it's something fresh. And I think there is an appetite for it, Ciara. I think a lot of
Yeah.
people are looking for authenticity, because there's so much that's not authentic, particularly if you bring social media stuff into it, let alone AI. They're looking for realness, they're looking for connection, they're looking for a sense of community. And they respond to people who are courageous enough to plant their own flag, you know, and show up in the world in a way that feels most authentic to them.
Hmm. And when you say, getting more in touch with the heart or bringing
Mm,
more heart in, is that relevant, let's say, in understanding who you are? So when you're helping people to figure out what they should be doing with their lives, like really getting back to who I am,
mm,
what do I want to do in the
yes.
world? And then how does intuition play with all of that?
Yeah, I think if we go back to what you were saying earlier about maybe having, you know, starting off as a coach, and you know, we have some questions and they can be like the stabilizers, and it's like, we know we can ask these, and it's all very rational and very helpful, you know, smart goals and all of that. Um, I think there comes a point where the stabilizers have to come off, and you do have to rely on your own experience and your own intuition with it. And I know, and you would know this too, from working with people or working with groups, somewhere out of the ether might come an idea, an exercise, a question, and we sort of go, "Where's that come from?" You know. But then when you ask it, it's like it's exactly what needs to be asked in the moment. It's exactly what the client needed, and we couldn't have predicted it.
Mm.
We couldn't have pre-planned it, and that requires trust. Yeah. And it's trust logically in sort of our own abilities and our own experience. But there's also trust that if we're going into it with a clear, conscious, positive intention, that maybe there's other powers that are there to assist us as well. And I certainly believe that. I don't know if you've ever had it, you know, where, you know, you're doing a one-to-one coaching session, but it's more than just the two of you in the room. There's, whether that's two brains coming together and, some new synergy is created, I don't know. But I think if there's an alignment between two people and their intentions in working together, um, whether we call it intuition, spirituality, it depends on your belief structure.
Yeah.
But I've seen too much evidence of it to discount it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's funny for me. So I do a live meditation in my membership group on a Wednesday morning, and I usually just leave it up to 6:45 on a Wednesday morning. What am I going to talk about?
Yes.
And the amount of times one or more of the group will say, "Oh wow, that's
Yes.
exactly what I needed right now."
Yes.
So it's just relying on that
Yeah.
to pop out of wherever this
Yeah,
idea.
and that's
Yeah,
that's tough. I mean, I like control. I like being organized. I like certainty. I like pre-planning. But the way I justify that to my rational brain is, let me lay the solid foundation with it. So, like,
yeah.
say with you and your membership group, you're going in with a clear positive intention. That's to be of service to the people who are there. You might have some inkling or some idea or something that builds on, what was there
Mm,
before. But let me leave enough space for inspiration to strike. Yeah.
yeah.
And for some people, inspiration might be an easier word than, say, intuition. But of
Yeah.
course, inspiration from the Latin inspire, meaning in spirit. So it's the same thing. Or even if we link it into meditation, where you're doing more purposeful breathing, it's to inspire, to breathe in. So we need to make a little bit of space for that. And again, also looping back to what you were saying about that moment of inspiration in the shower.
Yes.
Usually when we're in the shower, we're not overthinking. Um,
Yeah.
so therefore, there's a home for inspiration or an idea to settle.
So James, when we talk about um, intuition or inspiration or that, there is a kind of a subconscious element that can be explained,
Yes,
as well as possibly the more spiritual, whether that's it's coming from a higher wisdom or
yes.
external to ourselves. What do you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Again, it depends on the person's own belief structures. But I know for me, I do have a great faith. I have faith in something that's bigger than me. Um, if we look at it though from a science point of view or a neuroscience point of view, the research supposedly tells us that the conscious mind can process between 40 and 120 bits of information per second. Yeah. And that's enough for us to have this conversation here today, Ciara, or to cross the street or to drive the car. It's all the conscious, rational, logical inputs that are coming in through our five senses. And that's how we make sense of the world. And of course, sense is a logical word
mm,
as well. Um, from the unconscious mind's point of view, and from every organ, every cell in the body, it can process around 11 million bits of information a second. I mean, that is astronomically huge
phenomenal.
when you think about it. And the vast majority of those inputs never reach the conscious brain because they don't have to. Yeah. But if we think about intuition as a knowing without knowing, because the rational brain doesn't know,
Mhm.
that's the goose pimples on your skin, or it's the urge to get out of here because it doesn't feel safe. And if we think of all of those practices like mindfulness or yoga, which I do, or any sort of conscious breathing or body focused exercises, anything that gets us out of our heads, somehow it creates the space for us to be more available to other inputs. Um, and I would operate from a place that intuition is obviously like our sixth sense. It's perception beyond the senses, as I think Gary Zukav in The Seat of the Soul refers to it. But it's there designed to assist us, primarily to keep us safe. So it's part of our defense mechanism. But it's also vital components when we look at innovation and creativity and those aha moments. And as they closely linked to inspiration as well, that sense of inspire, or to be inspired. And um, uh, we can never wait for it to strike, though, or we can never force it to strike, but we have to work on being receptive to it, I think. And
Making the
that's why
space.
making the space for it. And that's why nowadays I do think there is more emphasis on things like, mindfulness or yoga or any of those practices that gets us out of our head and encourages us to slow down a little. Because from my experience, and certainly in working with clients, the vast majority of people I interact with are exhausted.
Mm.
They are in overwhelm when it comes to stimulus. And we're not just talking about physical tiredness here, we're talking about mental tiredness and social tiredness and caring tiredness. And you're not going to have, intuition or inspiration in those states because you're just in survival mode. And maybe that's why that question, what would feel like relief, is a very good one for me at the minute, because oftentimes it's just about quietening things down. And when we do that, then, as you say, we create the space for non-logical wisdom to take hold.
Yeah, it's exactly. Yeah, and that's where a lot of my work is, in this overwhelmed space.
Yes, yes,
And actually, a previous guest on the podcast, Jen, she spoke about, I think it was 12 forms of rest that
yes,
we need. We
yes.
don't realize it's not just plonking our asses on the couch and watching Netflix. That's not,
No, no, or doom scrolling. It
yeah,
might,
not
it's
quite rest.
no, it's funny. And then even say from a physical point of view, I was really tired yesterday, mainly because I didn't sleep the night before. Again, dog problems and
Yeah.
dog dads and whatever. The But I went to yoga last night and I came back from it refreshed. And I wasn't asleep. And like, it was a movement class. It wasn't yoga near, what's it, yoga nidra, where you're just lying
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
trying not to go asleep. But I came back refreshed because there was more consciousness on the breath, and there was a little bit of movement and stretching, obviously, within it. And sometimes the body needs nourishment as well as pure rest, um, or hydration as well as pure rest. And that's something, having had some health scares myself, that I'm just a little bit more conscious of. And I think when you reach a certain age too, Ciara, you sort of don't take the body for granted anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. When you want a quality of life. Well, for me,
Yes,
that I've gone back to tennis after
yes.
10 years, and I do everything right now to make
Mm,
sure that I can get back on that tennis court. So yeah,
yeah,
sometimes it's that, it's a driver, it's we're motivated towards something, or it's away from
yes,
something. There's that scare.
yes, yes, yes,
But so for your clients, and this is something with the overwhelm and the brain being so full, and having all the other responsibilities that we all have,
yes.
how do you help them to, when maybe they're confused, because a lot of clients come because they want to unpack all
Mm,
of this stuff going around in their head. Maybe they're unhappy in their career, or they're not sure if it is their career.
mm.
They're blaming the wrong thing for their unrest,
Yes.
and they come to coaching because they want to help get that clarity.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's a few, I won't call them golden rules. I suppose they're like foundational principles to how I operate. The word clarity is interesting because that tends to come up with coaching clients, maybe in an initial phone call with them. They're looking for clarity as to the next steps. One of the first things I will say to them is that most people will define clarity as certainty. So I want to be certain as to the next steps. I want to be certain that if I leave here or go there or apply for this, that this is the right thing for me to do. Unfortunately, the world does not work that way. And if it did, we wouldn't be happy because it would be boring. There would be no creativity, innovation, no need for courage, all of those other qualities. So clarity is not certainty. Clarity is the quality of your seeing, is usually the first thing I would say. So we want to make sure we're looking at our current situation, usually in a slightly broader way. Because if we're feeling challenged or overwhelmed or whatever, that's useful information to us. That's like, pay attention. There's something going on here. And it's usually an indication that there's a change trying to take place. And one of the first things when I'm working with clients after doing that definition of clarity reframe is like, we want to make sure that we're a cooperative component in our own development and in dealing with the change that's trying to take place. Because most of the time we will get in our own way. Now, that can bring into mind things like, limiting beliefs or limiting assumptions or outdated forms of thinking that maybe don't serve me anymore, or as I like to say, they're beyond their sell-by date. They served
Yeah.
you once, but they no longer do. The other key principle that I would operate to is that no one outside of you can tell you what's right for you. Particularly when we're maturer people, and most clients I work with would, they're not kids. And when we have life experience behind us, we have an idea of what we like, what lights us up, what drains us. We want to pay a bit more attention to that because the clues will be in it. So it's a bit like we're of an age when you used to have to find the contrast button on a television to get a clearer picture. It didn't automatically just happen for you. And contrast is a little bit of that. It's like, what do I want more of? What do I want less of? Where do I want to shine the light a bit more? What do I want to take my focus away from? They are what I would call the handrails of a learning curve during a coaching process. They will help you get towards the clarity that you're looking for. But most of the time when I'm working with people, they come to accept that it's not certainty in the next step, but it's trusting their own intuition, that word again, to progress in a direction and just to find a way of putting a little bit time and energy into a new direction without trying to preempt all the decisions that might be down the road, all of the what ifs. Because a lot of us will spend time trying to answer questions when it's not the time to answer the question. And that will lead to overwhelm. Oh, well, if I did this and I did that and then this happened and then what if that happened? It's like suddenly we're 3 years down the road. And I said, well, when the time comes, you'll make the best decision you will in the moment, just as you've always done up to this point with the information that was available to you at the time.
Yeah. People are so afraid of making the wrong decision.
Making the wrong decision. But sometimes, what's that great quote by Martin Luther King? Faith, but back to that word, faith or trust is taking the next step, even though you cannot see the staircase. Mm-hmm. And life is designed so that you won't see the staircase.
Yeah, exactly. And as you say, sometimes looking back,
you can see it.
Yeah.
And again, that's a nice parallel because as I will often say to clients, there's a certain trajectory there. There's been a certain movement, a certain progression for you. It ain't going to suddenly just fall off a cliff.
Yeah.
You're never starting from scratch. You're always starting from experience.
Very good. That's nice. We'll quote you on that one.
You're welcome.
Yeah. But it is that, isn't it? Especially when there's other people involved. I know I've had clients, maybe thinking about separating from their partner, but thinking about the kids and thinking about, everybody else around and how that's going to affect. So really, when there is a big decision, obviously we have to think of the logistics and the practical elements of it. But how do we then really tune in?
Yeah, I think it goes back to being of service to the client. That's always what I would come back to with that. It's also their personal responsibility for the decisions that they make. We will never have an answer for them. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people will come to coaching seeking either confirmation or permission to follow through on a decision that they've already made. Yeah. Sometimes they're looking for maybe ways of connecting with their own little bit of courage so that they can follow through on a decision that they know they want to make. But then another factor that can't be ignored within it is time as well. So how would I say it? When there's a complex decision to be made where it impacts more than just yourself, you do have to look at it over a timeline as well, because those decisions cannot be made quickly or easily in the moment. So sometimes I'll draw that out with the client, and it's like, okay, if the decision is over here, what's all the steps before it? There might be that Abraham Hicks phrase of being ready to be ready, or there might be a greater understanding of more information that's required to make the best decision. Or it might be an awareness that I'll never have all of the information I would like to have to make the decision. So how can I make it with the information that I do have? And then if a difficult decision is made, is that decision retrievable? So like, can I step back on it if I do make it? So it's like coming at it from all different angles. But sometimes in those sort of more challenging scenarios, there's two questions that people tend to find helpful. One is, what decision would feel like progress? And that could be the littlest thing, but what would feel like progress? And then, what decision would make me feel most proud about myself? Because that will get us connected to our own wisdom, our own sense of alignment, our own humanity, as it were. I think it goes beyond just the brain or the mind, the conscious mind. What decision would make me feel most proud about myself? That may not lead you to the easiest answer, but it will usually lead you, or at least open the door to, the most authentic one.
And then have you had the scenario where people feel like that was a mistake? So they move forward and they really feel like,
No,
okay, I messed that up. No.
never had it. Never had it. And maybe part of that is that, I'm not working with people who are, say, contemplating marriage separations and things. It's not my forte. It's not referenced anywhere in any of my material.
I don't think anyone ever regrets marriage separation.
Yeah,
I
no,
think I don't think that's one.
no. And I've, how would I say it? I've never come across it, though, when people have put the time and attention into making the best decision they can, that they regret it. And most of the people I would work with, those big decisions come around career changes.
Right.
And I have never come across someone yet who has regretted making a career change.
Yeah. Yeah.
In
And
22 years.
what's the worst that can happen? Yeah.
Yes, because you've still got employability skills, or you can still make a new decision to do something else.
Yeah.
That doesn't make the process of making decisions or instigating change or coping with change any easier. But I think for those of us who have the belief of, life is not happening to you, but life is happening with you, and maybe even for you, you can sort of go with the flow with that a little bit more rather than fight against it. And again, back to that question, what would feel like relief is usually a way of connecting with the natural flow of life a little more.
And one of the things I love to use is the what if. So when we start getting into that negative, what if this is the wrong decision?
Yes.
What if I hate it? What if the
Yes.
people are horrible? What if it's the best thing I've ever
Yes.
done?
Yes. Yeah, that always reminds me of, how would I say it? It's an anticipation piece, and where we will naturally anticipate the worst case scenario, which is part of our defense mechanism. It's the birth of worry when you think about it. Worry being the long shadow of the worst possible future that we experience in the present. It's all based on future-based thinking, and we're skewed that way, Ciara, because it's part of our defense mechanism. So, like, if we're crossing the street, we're sort of saying, well, how, what if that car's coming quicker than I think? We're not just walking out,
Scanning
So,
for threat, scanning
yeah.
for the, yeah,
So
yeah,
that's what we do.
yeah.
But that's negative anticipation. As I'll often say to groups or clients, how about doing just a little bit of positive anticipation, just for the sake of variation, if nothing else, because both of them are habits of thinking. Yeah. Both
Absolutely.
of them are only thoughts. They
We
don't
need
exist other
to
than your head.
retrain the brain to start to shift into that more positive thinking more often.
Yeah, and most of the time, I even hate the term positive thinking. Most of the time in that context, it's just more rational thinking.
Well,
Because
more.
if we go back and we look at right, well, what evidence do I have to support that it will work out or support that it won't work out? And usually we have more evidence to support that it will work out. That's why I'm a great fan of Byron Katie's work. Well, is that true? Is that really true? Because sometimes that's like a laser for bringing the rational brain into a very emotive and natural response. But let me use the rational brain this time to assess the emotional thinking that might be spiraling off.
And do you have any techniques that you use when you step into a more negative headspace or a worried, when you start to,
Or because
yeah,
we all have
yeah.
them, and um, I know my patterns.
Mm,
I have a whole menu of options that I will go to depending. And then different times of the year or different states I'm in might call for different ones. Certainly for me, over the last few months when the weather has been good, I've been out for early morning walks. That's ticking many boxes. I used to like sort of have earphones in and listen to a podcast or listen to
mm,
something. This year, I haven't. This year, I've just been much more present and in nature and interacting with people you might meet in the same faces. And I've loved starting the day like that. And that's about 40 minutes, usually at 20 past or half 7 in the morning. I found it sets me up for the day. Yoga is another one of my go-to practices. It nourishes the body and nourishes the mind for me. Sometimes during the day, if the day gets on top of me a lot, I do like to get out and move, and that's a walk. When I was thinking back to some challenges we had here with the house when we had to move out and the burst pipe was discovered, and there was a lot of unexpected hassle stuff. It's like I found myself putting the jacket on and just going out for a walk. And I might have been really angry heading out for a walk, and it's great for getting the steps up because it's fueling me.
yeah.
But I now sort of know that that sort of movement, of the right left side of the body, whether it's jogging or swimming or maybe even tennis to some extent too, Ciara, it connects the right left side of the brain a bit more. It's how us as humans are designed, to move, and it's very difficult to change our state when we're stationary. So it's a bit like getting the energy moving again is something that I find works for me, along with maybe a few sort of questions that sort of give my mind something else to do rather than to fixate on something. Because when we're, as humans, we're naturally skewed. So we will fixate on things. It's part of our default mechanism. We just need to give the brain something else to do.
Yeah, yeah. Interestingly, so I walk my dogs every morning, and a lot of mornings I walk in the woods.
Yes,
And I started listening to a book,
right.
and it was a spiritual book. So I said to
Yeah.
myself, well, that's okay. I can listen to this while I go for my walk. So I'd started to get into the habit of, plugging in, walking through nature. And then I realized one day, okay, yeah, plug out, become more present.
Yes,
Your
yeah,
walk.
to become more
Yeah,
present, even though you'd enjoy the podcast or you enjoyed the music.
exactly. And
That's
that's nice to do some days, but I
someday.
knew that I was,
Yeah.
filling my mind again too much. And I knew there was a
Yes.
need for this.
Yes.
This is interesting. This is relevant to our conversation because that day when I had that realization and I went for my walk, I wasn't long on the walk, and this idea came to me: share more about intuition.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it came to me, and then when I come home and I opened up my laptop, and who was there? Only James Sweetman
With the podcast episode
with
on
a
it.
podcast episode about intuition. And at the
Yeah.
same time was saying, this is lovely. I love these, synchronicities. Was
Yes. Yes.
why did I not think of inviting James on the podcast before?
Yeah.
So
It's like
it was,
your intuition for intuition, as it were. The yeah, and I know just when you're speaking, what's popped into my head is, I'm a great consumer, and maybe the better definition of that word, a great consumer of information and books and knowledge and wisdom. It's just, it lights me up. But that has to be balanced with the recognition of what we already know ourselves, whether that's instinctively or intuitively or logically. If we've reached a certain age in life, or if we've been, working in a certain field for a long time, we have a lot of answers on the inside ourselves. And that requires a little bit of trust as well. And I know sometimes my pattern has been to look externally for an answer, whereas in reality, particularly for the big decisions in life, the answer is within. It might be a cliche, but all cliches are based on truth.
Absolutely. 100% truth. And it is finding that stillness, isn't it?
Yes,
Where, everything feels calmer, clearer, lighter. But I know in my experience with working with a lot of people, even myself, I suppose, it's that even knowing all this, I mean, I'm a meditation teacher for
yes.
probably 10 years and still filling my mind, doing my practice, but not actually living the practice.
Yeah, but I also think that is life too, because sometimes we come at this from, say, a work-life balance point of view, which might be what people can relate to it more easily. But as I would see it now, it's not about work-life balance. It's just about balance, and that balance is whether it's your own knowledge or external knowledge. It's if whether it's your own work, or it's the different aspects of your own work. Um, it's never going to be static. Um, we're never going to be sorted, because again, that's back to sort of boring. And it's like, oh, at 8 o'clock I'll do this, or 7:30 I'll bring the dogs for,
Well, it's just not possible.
and it's not possible.
Not possible.
And we would get fed up with it very quickly. So one of the things that I've learned in the last little while is like, well, how balanced do I feel in the moment? And what do I need to adjust today? Because it will be different on different days. Um, there will be days when everything is just flowing, and the muse has shown up, and you're creative and doing great work and exceptionally productive. And then the next day, for no obvious reason, it just ain't happening.
Yeah.
And I've become aware enough to acknowledge those days for what they are. It's like, oh, this is going to be a third gear day as opposed to a fifth gear day for no obvious reason. And let me not beat myself up over that. Yeah. And let me focus on, maybe back to your question, right? Well, what's the next most important thing for me to be doing here? So I'm chunking it down a little more. But for me, it does go back to balance. And the skill is recognizing when we're out of balance.
Yeah. Yeah. And a key piece there, I suppose, and probably was a huge catalyst for me, was learning to forgive myself.
Yeah, yeah,
Learning to understand that we're not perfect,
yeah,
that I will make mistakes. And the
yeah,
quicker I forgave myself for things, the quicker I was able to adopt better
yeah,
habits and behaviors and
yeah,
look after myself.
yeah, yeah. I think forgiveness is the only thing that allows us to be less tough on ourselves,
Yeah. Yeah.
because we'll always give things our best shot, but we'll judge ourselves if our best is not constantly 100%. But maybe today a first class honors is sufficient. Um,
And I know, James, we're not supposed to give advice as coaches, but having all this wisdom and knowledge in that head of yours, for the person who wants to be more still, who wants to be more present, but is coming from that chaos, busyness, doesn't know how to, or feels uncomfortable with stillness, because in fairness, it's not
yeah,
something
it
that
can be
comes natural.
yeah, it can be a
Where to
scary
start?
thing for people, because they might be afraid that if they stop, what would they have to deal with?
Yeah.
And what tricky emotions might I have to deal with? Because for a lot of us, we will distract ourselves with busyness from, I suppose, the work that's waiting for us to do. It's that Joseph Campbell quote of, the cave you fear to enter will hold the treasure you seek. Um, from my experience, it's for me, the voice of intuition is the voice of love. So it's not a harsh, grating, shouty, screeching voice that we can confuse with the voice of the ego. Yeah. So if I give myself permission, because that's what it comes down to, to have 5 minutes, like we were saying with the walk, or not looking at the phone, or just, maybe some gentle music in the background, or an app or Insight Timer or something going in the background. Let me just sit with that. And it might be uncomfortable, and there might be a snippet of time, a few seconds where maybe you allow the shoulders to relax a little or the jaw to relax, and just honor those moments. There are times when my head is all frantic and I know I need to sit still and have some quiet time. That's what I call it. I don't even use the word meditation because that can have connotations for people, but just to have some quiet time where I'm not being stimulated. And I think the body loves that. The body and the heart, and probably the mind too, just loves it, because it's like, I can just go for a bit. And the body is designed to support us with that, Ciara. As you would know, if we're taking a slightly longer exhale, it's triggering the parasympathetic nervous system, the old rest and digest function. So the tip I often give, and I do breathing exercises with clients from time to time, particularly the ones that are all in their heads and they need to have something else to do, is to take a 2-staged in breath. So like breathe in through the nose, and then again, which this makes it a strategy, and then a slightly longer exhale. And you do a few of those, because we breathe about 22,000 times a day, and virtually none of them are purposeful or conscious. But if we think about the body's natural programming, so if I'm frustrated or stressed or overwhelmed, I will sigh with frustration. But what is a sigh? It's a longer exhale. It's the body's way of triggering the parasympathetic nervous system so that you can feel a little bit easier with it. So let's just do that a bit more purposefully. And like, the body knows it. If you're doing something you're nervous or anxious about, oh, take a deep breath and off you go. It's like, yes, but let me just take the deep breath proactively, so that I'm conscious doing it. So that's where I would encourage people to start, is just a few more conscious breaths. And even say for busy people, say in busy meetings or work, and they're going from one Zoom call to something else, or, there's a kid pickup somewhere, or all of the stuff that we're dealing with, could I take 3 or 4 conscious breaths? Maybe it takes a minute to do it. We can find a minute.
Yeah. And it's coming out of the head and into the body, and it's that embodiment really stalls that chaos in the mind just for a minute.
Yeah.
And the longer gaps we can do, and that can become habitual, even if it's, as you say, for 20 seconds, but if we
I would
start
always
to
say,
do it.
our breath is our friend.
Yeah.
Is how I would often phrase it. Our breath is our friend, and let me just rely on that friend a little more.
Yeah. So, James, what's coming up next for you? Is there a book in the...
Oh, goodness. I'm writing more than I've ever written, I would have to say, Ciara. Part of that is because of my own membership community, where there's now a weekly newsletter that they get. So there's two articles that goes out every week with that. And one is really personal. It's like, what's James noticing this week? What am I learning? So it's at the cutting edge of my own development, and people tend to respond to that, because I know the more open and authentic and vulnerable I am, people see themselves reflected in it. The last book was Words to Inspire, which was out in 23, I think it was. And I'm dreadful because I've not pushed that as much as I should. I love writing them. I'm not great at selling them. But that's something that I could easily do a follow-up with, because that was like 70 little snippets on various different topics and reflection questions and semi-meditation things in it. But I'm not feeling it for that at the minute. The membership community has been getting a lot of my focus in the last little while. That's a brand new piece of work. And and I'm loving it, which lets me know I'm sort of pointing in the right direction with it. And the first seeds of that came on the walks around this time last year.
Right. Very good.
Yeah, the other than that, it sort of ticks over with the coaching work and the conference talks and the group workshops. But I'm fortunate to be in a position where I am able to lean more into what lights me up. Now, there are times where it's like, okay, I'll need to do this because it's a nice paying job, where I'm not a registered charity, but I'm very attuned to the sort of work that I love doing. And I have, how would I say it, in recent times, I've showcased that a little more. And some people have drifted away from it, and that's fine, but it's also brought new people into my playing field, as it were. And then, of course, my own podcast is almost at the end of its current series, and I think it's in about 2 weeks' time it'll hit the 200th episode.
Wow.
Which has sort of creeped up on me a little bit. So I'm waiting for the inspiration to see how I can mark that.
Yeah, definitely want to. Yeah.
Because I'm not the best one at sort of acknowledging milestones like that. It's like, on to the next thing, as it were.
I missed your last book launch, so you always put on a good
You
party.
didn't miss it because I don't think I had one.
Well, there you go. We're well due a party, James, please.
We probably are, but it was interesting. I wrote that book when I took what I now phrase as my practical sabbatical. I did have to take some time out. And when I did, and this is like rest on a bigger scale, after about 2 or 3 weeks, I found my creativity looking for expression again. And one of the things that I've learned is that, if we're looking to feel more fulfilled in whatever aspect of our lives, it will always require us to exercise our creativity in whatever way lights us up. So that book came out of my practical sabbatical, and it brought me huge pleasure in writing it. And the other interesting thing that came out of taking some time out was, as a very mature student, Ciara, I went back to college in September 22 to do a master's in creative writing, and loved it, like absolutely loved it. And whilst, that led to other adventures, and, I had to play on in a theatre and, stuff that's extracurricular, it did reinforce for me my love of writing, creating certainly, but writing in particular. And it sort of gave me the permission, for want of a better phrase, to really run with that and to see it as something that's a bit more front and center for me rather than an add-on.
Yeah, fantastic. And that's probably a good place to finish, even though I
Oh my
didn't finish the
goodness.
conversation. But it's that, with intuition or getting the answer to a question, it's usually the answer it gives you a lighter feeling.
Oh, 100%. 100%. It's going back to the body knows. So if I'm feeling excited or lighter or curious, that's always an indication that you're pointing in the right direction.
Yeah.
And it's worth exploring, if nothing else.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, James. And if anyone wants to get more on intuition, make sure you check out James's podcast, Your Time with James Sweetman, where he has lots of amazing episodes with more wisdom. So yeah, thanks. Make sure you check him out. Everything will be below in the show notes. All the links to his membership, his website, his podcast, and his books, and many more things. So James, thanks again for giving us your time.
Oh gosh, you're more than welcome, Ciara. My pleasure.
Have a fabulous day. I knew James would make a great guest, so I hope you got lots of great benefit from that conversation. And make sure you check him out on his website, where you'll find his podcast, his books, courses, and everything else that he offers. So, as always, please follow the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to, which could really help to support us get the message out there and help as many people as possible. Share it with your colleagues, your friends, and family. And lastly, I just want to remind you that if you're not already a member of the Life Flow High Vibration community, my community is free for a limited time, and that limited time has now become a limited amount of people. So we're currently at 137 members. When it hits 150, there will be a cost to the membership, which will be a very small cost, and you will get a lot of value, too much value actually, from the small membership fee. But if you're lucky enough to get in quickly, there's 13 places left at a lifetime of free value. And that includes daily inspiration, it includes weekly live meditations, and monthly goal setting and productivity planning to keep you on track and focused. So make sure you check that out. Link below in the show notes. As always, thank you for listening, and make sure you go and have a beautiful inner day.